Hello, everyone. It is January 15th, 2024. It's Martin Luther King Jr. Day here in Missouri, the Great River State, and it's a cold one. It is -4 degrees outside, according to my phone, which feels like -20. So, an unusually cold January 15th here in Missouri. You may know me. I serve as the executive director of Stream Teams United. We are the Missouri Stream Team Watershed Coalition, a statewide nonprofit formed in 1999, and we work daily for education, stewardship, and advocacy for Missouri's rivers and streams. And we're excited to announce that we are going to be launching a new podcast this this year, right now, called the Great River State Podcast. And so this is brought to you by Missouri Stream Teams for anyone who loves to float, fish, swim, or wade the waters of our great river state. And everyone knows Missouri as the Show Me State, but in 2012, our organization worked with people that love rivers, people that love water, and worked through the Senate for a Senate resolution that gifted Missouri with an additional state slogan, the Great River State. And we truly are. We have two of the longest river systems flowing through Missouri, with the Missouri and the Mississippi rivers as our borders and with their confluence at St. Louis. We have a great diversity of streams within our state, with our clear Ozark streams in the Ozark Mountains, and our historically prairie streams in the north, and then streams in the Missouri Boothville. And so with that great variety of streams, we have an amazing diversity of aquatic organisms, fish, crayfish, mussels here in the state of Missouri. So it's a great resource here, a real treasure, a gem. And you can see behind me, this is one of our special places in Missouri. This is the Castor River Shut-ins, which is near Fredericktown, and definitely a special place. So we have these wonderful resources in our state, and Missouri Stream Teams for 35 years. This is the 35th anniversary of the Missouri Stream Team program here in 2024. We've been working mostly through volunteers to help keep our rivers and streams clean. And what does that look like? That looks like taking time on weekends, and for many people during their retirement years, to pick up litter, that we didn't put in the stream necessarily, to pick up other people's litter, and try to get our community behind taking care of these rivers and streams. And so with this first podcast message here on January 15th, 2024, wanted to go ahead and get this started because there's some important information that we need to share with the Missouri public and anybody that really cares about water resources. If you follow us, we have a weekly newsletter that goes out by email on Fridays. We're on social media. We are on YouTube at Mo Stream Team. Podcast is going to be just another way that we can communicate what's going on with the Missouri public, or with Missouri Stream Teams to and rivers and streams to the Missouri public. Okay, so why are we here today? Well, one of the things Stream Teams United does is we watch legislation and what's been proposed in the Missouri State Legislature, and particularly looking at state legislation. We do sometimes watch what's going on at the federal level, but in particular, more at the state legislation. So in December, there were two bills filed here in Missouri, a House bill and a Senate bill. It's House Bill 1691 and Senate Bill 981. And these were proposed by a representative and a senator that represent parts of Northwest Missouri, which we can talk about a little bit later. And these bills seek to redefine the definition of waters of the state in a most negative way that would be detrimental to all Missourians. The only people this legislation would benefit would be people industries that are planning on polluting, especially planning on polluting headwater streams, tributary streams, or groundwater. So a lot of times we think, oh, why do these bills exist? Well, it helps to protect people that might be negligent in their actions at the detriment of anyone else that drinks water, uses water, and is downstream. And so to try to kind of get at like, what does this legislation do? I'm going to talk about what the current definition is of waters of the state here in Missouri. Okay, so the current definition of waters of the state is pretty straightforward. So it is basically, here we go, it's water within the state boundaries, includes rivers, streams, lakes, bodies of surface water and subsurface water. So we're talking about groundwater, lying within or part of the boundaries of the state, which is not entirely confined and located upon lands owned, leased, or otherwise controlled by a single person or by two or more persons jointly or as tenants in common. So I know that's kind of confusing. Like, what does that all mean? So it basically means if you, as a private individual or jointly with someone else, own the entirety of that whole body of water, then that is your private body of water. If that water body extends onto a property, another person's property, then it's considered waters of the state. And so that's pretty straightforward. And that makes sense because then it is a shared resource. Okay. It's shared with whoever that neighbor is. And your actions on your personal property could have the potential to impact somebody else. Okay. So currently it's a very straightforward definition, and it includes groundwater. It includes water that is on more than one single private property. Okay, so the two bills that were introduced in early December, House Bill 1691, which is sponsored by Representative Dean Van Schluck, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, represents part of Northwest Missouri, and Senator Rusty Black sponsored Senate Bill 981. So when we look at the House representative, that's Missouri House District 9. Okay. And so when we look at Missouri, this is a part of Missouri that the area that this Representative Dean Van Schluck represents, the streams in this part of the state have been some of the already most damaged streams that we have. The area was historically covered with prairie, has been converted to mostly row crop agriculture. A lot of the streams have been channelized. A lot of the streams in this region have been very, very much damaged. And there are not plentiful groundwater resources in this area as compared to the Ozarks. And so I just want to bring that up, is that the state legislators that have filed this legislation, live in areas that don't have the best water. So their constituents may not care about this legislation as much as other people, and it may not affect their constituents as much as other people. When we look at Senator Black, he also represents Northwest Missouri and Senate District 12. So if you want to read more about these, the folks that have sponsored this legislation, you can go to house.mo.gov and look at the legislators, or senate.mo.gov and search for them. And so disappointing, to say the least, because, why is it disappointing? Well, we have the Clean Water Act in 1972. That's the federal act that was put into place when, there were rivers that were on fire and a lot of rivers had been damaged. And with the goal of making all rivers fishable, swimmable, drinkable, and improving them. So disappointing. And so we, Stream Teams United, have a response to this. We've set up an interactive platform that you can find on our website at streamteamsunited.org. And the platform is helping to reach out to both House and Senate leadership and the bill sponsors and your own personal local senator and representative in your area to let them know, please don't advance this legislation. We are not supportive of it, and it's very damaging. The the Missouri State Constitution, the Bill of Rights in the Missouri State Constitution is Section 1, Article 1, states that all political power is vested in and derived from the people, that all government of right originates from the people, is founded upon their will only, and is instituted solely for the good of the whole. The proposed bills, House Bill 1691 and Senate Bill 981, only serve to benefit a few for their own negligence. They serve to damage the majority and are absolutely destructive for the good of the whole. Okay, so today, as I said, January 15th, 2024, Stream Teams United sent a letter to both House leadership, the Speaker of the House here in Missouri and the President of the Senate, asking them not to advance this legislation. Here on my cup, my crayfish cup, you're not going to be able to see it, but I have a long pinchered crayfish, which is one of our special species here in the state that lives in the White River drainage of Missouri and Arkansas, and is the largest crayfish species in North America. Missouri has a lot of unique species, several species that only live in Missouri and nowhere else in the state. And most of the time, their habitat are some of these intermittent streams. And that may be the only stream habitat they're found in. And this is what this legislation is talking about, not protecting any further. And so with Senate Bill 981 and House Bill 1691, they're seeking to redefine the definition of waters of the state. And so I'll read to you what that looks like. And so you remember I told you that the current definitions of waters of the state is that it would be a body of water that's on more than one person's property. And so when we go to look at what is the definition, what are they trying to change this definition to, I will pull that up. Okay. What the definition is looking that they're wanting to change this to, and this is where it sounds a lot complicated. I will explain it a little bit further. Wanting to change it to all relatively permanent, standing, or continuously flowing rivers, streams, lakes, and ponds lying within or forming part of the boundaries of the state, not entirely confined and located upon lands owned, leased, or otherwise controlled by a single person or by two or more persons jointly as tenants in common. And so the change there is that they've added permanent, standing, or continuously flowing as part of the definition. And so that serves to remove intermittent streams, serves to remove groundwater, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But it says lakes and ponds shall have a continuous surface connection to a relatively permanent, standing, or continuously flowing body of water. Waters of the state include wetlands adjacent to relatively permanent, standing, or continuously flowing bodies of water, identified with a continuous surface connection to those waters. And this is even the real more interesting and real more damaging part. Subsurface aquifers that have a surface connection with relatively permanent, standing, or continuously flowing rivers and streams. The definition is much longer now, much more confusing when you read it through that first time. So I'm going to go in and kind of talk about our talking points and what is our interpretation of this. So today we sent a letter to the Speaker of the House and the Senator, the President of the Senate, with our talking points. And I'm just going to go ahead and read that to you so you can see what our interpretation is. Okay. So our current Speaker of the House is Representative Dean Plocher. And again, I apologize if I am saying that incorrectly. If you live in St. Louis and you live in the DePere area, and basically it's part of St. Frontenac, town and country, just kind of northeast of Manchester. This is your representative. So if you're in that area, oh, Huntley is another area. If you're in that area and this is your representative, I would encourage you to reach out to him about this. So, dear representative, and also sent this to Senator Rowden, I am writing today on behalf of all Missourians and visitors to this great state, asking you to not advance two bills, House Bill 1691, sponsored by Representative Dean Van Schluck, and Senate Bill 981, sponsored by Senator Rusty Black, which seek to redefine waters of the state. These bills would legalize pollution of many Missouri waterways and groundwater systems, create great uncertainty in jurisdictional boundaries, and lead to increased costs for the state to determine if waterways are within the bounds of state jurisdiction. With the current extended drought prevalent throughout Missouri, many of our state's rivers and streams are very low. Missourians need to have ample clean water available for drinking supply and other purposes. The proposed new definitions of waters of the state could cause damaging pollution to our already depleted water resources in the state. The proposed changes directly undermine taxpayer-funded programs to conserve water in the state, in particular, the state soil and waters tax. Now, that tax directs millions of dollars each year to landowners to pay for improvements on their property for the purpose of reducing pollution in our state's waterways. This tax was passed by an overwhelming majority by vote of Missourians, being approved by 80% of the vote in 2016, passing in every Missouri county. Missourians have spoken clearly through their vote of this tax. Missourians want clean water and are willing to pay for it. Okay, so this is what the bills do, okay, and how they change this definition of water of the state. The legislation allows for pollution of upstream tributaries that do not have permanent flow. And if you've looked outside at any streams in the last year or so, you know that the current flow of most streams throughout the state are below normal, and therefore many streams that are normally flowing throughout the year may now be dry, and this legislation would make it legal to pollute these riverways. The legislation also legalizes the pollution of groundwater by saying that subsurface water has to have that surface connection. We simply cannot afford to allow for pollution of water resources, especially when the state is in an extended drought. We should be protecting our water supply more, not less. So the proposed legislation would have these following negative impacts. It would create more uncertainty regarding if a water falls under the jurisdiction of the Missouri Clean Water Law. The current definition of waters of the state is straightforward. The proposed definition change creates much more uncertainty because it requires a hydrologic or geologic study based on the amount of water flow or connection to surface water. Page 2. This uncertainty will result in substantial inability for the state to regulate many currently regulated sources of pollution and a delayed and expensive decision-making process to determine if new sources of pollution are within the jurisdiction of the Missouri Clean Water Law. The legislation would remove groundwater from protection as waters of the state unless it can be proven that the groundwater has a connection to surface water. Determining if groundwater has a connection to surface water requires a geologic study. This change would cost the state time and money. It goes on. Missouri's 2023 Census of Public Water Systems shows that over 2 million people drink groundwater from public systems. Only 1.3% of these people drink water from systems that receive groundwater under the direct influence from surface water. So with this, it would appear the remaining 98.7%, or 2,111,255 people, so over 2 million people in Missouri that receive public water, would have sources that could be legally polluted under this legislation. This does not include the thousands of people who drink from private wells, you might be one of those, which would be at risk as well. The proposed legislation removes intermittent and ephemeral streams from being protected as waters of the state. Okay, these tributaries, as most people know, are the beginning of larger streams and rivers And downstream water quality is directly influenced by upstream input of pollution. Allowing pollution of headwaters of rivers is allowing for pollution of downstream waters and therefore allowing for pollution of waters of the state, which are intended to be a shared resource for the beneficial use of people. So that's what we have with waters of the state. Waters of the state are supposed to be, it's a shared resource for the people. And to be able to support the aquatic life naturally found within those rivers and streams. Okay, so we go on to say this is severely negative change to anyone who drinks, cooks, or bathes with water from within Missouri. This is probably everyone. Have you drank or cooked or bathed with water from Missouri today? Negative to those who swim or recreate in our Missouri rivers, lakes, and streams, which is important for tourism. We have a lot of tourism here in Missouri because of water, because of clean water, not because of dirty water, because of clean water. Those who like to fish for sport or consumption in Missouri, which we have a pretty big business that started here in Missouri based around fishing called Bass Pro Shops, also brings in a lot of people each year. This could be bad for anybody that owns a home on one of Missouri's lakes, which we have a few, Table Rock, like the Ozarks, and others. And this potentially, especially has the potential to negatively impact quality of groundwater for people served by private wells, which are thousands of people. Okay. The proposed legislation would remove wetlands from being protected as waters of the state unless a connection to surface water can be determined, and this determination costs time and money. Both intermittent and ephemeral streams serve as habitat for many aquatic species in Missouri, both fish, crayfish species. We have some species that are found only in Missouri, only in the Missouri Ozarks, and nowhere else in the world. And many times they inhabit these smaller intermittent streams. And for those species, there are several government programs working to conserve them. So the proposed change undermines current efforts of Missouri agencies in their mission to protect public natural resources. With all these negative consequences of this legislation, so we're on page 3, and this is the final page of our letter. With all these negative consequences of this legislation, a Missouri taxpaying citizen may wonder what the impetus would be for the proposal of such legislation. It is clear that the only entities benefiting from this legislation would be the persons or businesses who cause pollution and desire to not be accountable for their damaging actions. Okay, and then we go on to talk about the Bill of Rights in the Missouri Constitution that talks about government being originating from the people, founded upon their will, and instituted solely for the good of the whole. So these two bills that have been introduced are destructive and are not being introduced for the good of the whole. So we ask on the behalf of all Missourians and our visitors who drink water and desire to live in healthy places to not advance House Bill 1691 and Senate Bill 981. Okay. So that's where we are as of today, January 15th, 2024, and our request for this legislation to not advance. And so where does that leave us, you may ask yourself? We've set up a platform where people can reach out and voice their opinion. You can go to streamteamsunited.org and go to our advocate tab and find the next tab. If you scroll down, it'll say Stop the Bad Waters of the State bills, and we'll put it in the description of this video. So I appreciate your time. Excited about talking to you in the future, and we anticipate having more guests, so you're just not listening to me during this new podcast that we have. But again, we are very blessed to live here in Missouri, the Great River State. I'd like to thank all the individuals who are taking positive actions to conserve your stream, to make it better, and like to, we need to help not allow things to go in the opposite direction, because water is way too precious of a resource. Until next time.